Hi, I'm David Sullivan, and I'm going to try and explain what is actually a fairly straightforward task of fitting an F connector to a satellite cable. Let me first just explain the construction of a cable and just get a close-up of this now. There are 5 layers. Obviously the first one is the outer cable there, and inside that is a copper mesh, which is part of a screening thing to get rid of unwanted external signals. Inside that is a metallic foil, usually aluminium, but sometimes copper. Then there's an insulation, and inside that is a copper core itself. And then we have the F connector itself, which has 2 threaded ends. That one is the part that screws onto the cable, and this fits onto the socket on the back of the digibox or on the dish. So let's make a start, and we use a craft knife to do this, and we obviously take full precautions against injury, for which I accept no responsibility whatsoever. And we have to very carefully cut round the outer insulation, cut through to the inner section, the copper mesh, preferably without cutting through the mesh itself. Obviously you're not going to do it without cutting some of the mesh away, but that doesn't matter, as long as the majority of it is left intact. So I'm slicing through, and when it's through, it should be possible then just to pare the covering away. You might need to just pare it away a little bit. And now you'll see that it's breaking away, and we're just left with the mesh part. Now what we need to do now is to peel the mesh back. I'm doing this very slowly just to show, but it's quite straightforward really. Right back to the outer core, and just lay it back along the core. Then if you get hold of part of the mesh, and just twist it into a pigtail. You don't have to do it with all of it. Just lie it back along the copper, along the plastic, the outer plastic coating. Very important at this stage not to leave any filaments lying along this part here, which could then short circuit against the inner cable. Make sure that all the strands are laid back along the outer covering. This metallic foil now can just be trimmed away. I'll just use the Stanley knife the craft knife. Okay. Now then, what we do now is to just cut through here to about 5mm or so away from the mesh and the outer covering. Just cut round. Okay, and that's what we've got now. The next thing to do is to raid your first aid cupboard for some petroleum jelly. Okay, just get a little bit onto your finger and wipe it onto the mesh like so. It serves 2 purposes. Firstly, it helps to protect it against corrosion. Secondly, it makes it easier to screw the F connector onto the cable. So now the F connector simply, there we are, simply goes over the end, right over, okay, and then we screw it on to the end of the cable, and it will cut its own thread into the outer covering. Screw it on until the insulation just comes up level. If I can just show down there, the insulation that surrounds the copper cable, the inner core, will just come level with the end. And then all we do is just try and get a pair of pliers that would actually work, that would help, and just cut the excess core off, leaving about 2 or 3 millimeters sticking out of the end. There we are, and that's it. And the only job then to do is to get rid of the excess braid with the craft knife. And there we are, the job's done. And it's as simple as that. It'll actually take you a lot shorter time to do it than it took me to demonstrate. And just one final thing. These F connectors are great on permanent installations, such as you have in your home. But for temporary installations, like a caravan, where you're constantly connecting and disconnecting, they're a pain in the backside. And what I prefer to do is to fit an adapter, which is this. And what happens is that screws into the end of the F connector, and it just screws in tightly, finger tight, and then the end of it just fits straight onto the socket on the back of the digibox, or indeed on the dish, and it can be pushed on, removed any number of times you like, and it's quick and simple, and it just stays permanently in place on the end of the cable. You can get them from well-known electronics outfitter that you'll find in any out-of-town shopping mall, or there's an online supplier that you'll find on my links page on my website. Begins with S.